Salami and bacon, my brothers and sisters. Very welcome to the Why Are Muslim UK Pakistani Men So Rapey episode. Um, yeah, I mean, we're trying to put a brave face and make light of a situation that is actually horrific. And my guests today are the Patriotic Christian. Welcome back, Roan. And of course, the one and the only Thunderous One. Unfortunately, Francis Boulle was called away at the last minute. We're hoping he will still join us. And of course, Thunderous is an ex-Muslim, now Christian. So is Francis Boulle. And the Patriotic Christian is an ex-atheist, now Christian and political activist. So welcome, guys.
All ham to Allah.
All ham to Allah. Yes. Take beer. Take beer, everyone. Take beer.
Yeah, so obviously I've been away for a while, so this is my first live stream in a few months, but there's been some health concerns and other things, but yeah, I'm hoping to make this actual topic that's going on now is what's making me want to make a big comeback and get back into it, because yeah, it's disgusting what's taking place.
It is disgusting, and it's inexcusable, and what your government is doing. I mean, the attention has been in your government for a few months now. It's been building, and now it's reached this crescendo.
This has gone on for years.
No, I know that, but only recently on social media, it's becoming, especially what's been happening with Romy Tobinson. You know, we've had a lot of attention poured on that now with Elon Musk bringing attention, and also, this is becoming something that the world is now watching.
Exactly, and I was thinking this just the other day. Just imagine if Elon Musk didn't have Twitter, or he wasn't the person who he was, and we didn't have the likes of Tommy Robinson, this would still be going on. The government used Tommy and his followers, if you like, the movement, as a scapegoat to cover up their own failures. And they tried blaming it all on the far right, this far right.
The very right.
I think. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, I just wanted to leave a last thing as well. Channel 4 went as far as making a documentary that this grooming gang scandal, to make the public believe that it was just a conspiracy theory of the far right. And they went as far as making this grooming scandal documentary to say that white British people and the far right were persecuting the Muslim community and those of Asian ethnicity because of this grooming scandal conspiracy problem, and it was causing racism, all kinds of other slander and attacks on the Muslim community and those of a different ethnic background, which is complete lies. And now, luckily, Elon...
there's even fake reports with fake statistics.
Exactly,
which is frightening. Yeah, and let's say hello to Thunderous One. Welcome back, Thunderous.
Hey guys. Well, a new year, and look what's happened within the first few weeks. We're just over, not even the first fortnight of the new year, and we've had terrorist attacks. We've got this scandal that's now reappearing in a bigger manner. Just a couple of comments I would like to make. I think there's a bigger context in all of this. I don't think it's a coincidence that now we are finding ourselves discussing this. There seems to be a bigger picture, and I think the Islamic components in this is a small piece. No, let me rephrase that. A rather important piece in a bigger image with reference to this situation that we're in. One of the things that I would like, there are many things I'd like to mention, I'd like to bring up tonight, but with reference to the Asian community, I think we really, if we're going to look at it from an Islamic Pakistani Muslim community point of view, I think we really have to look at, say, probably events since 1989 with the Salman Rushdie affair, because it's not just one component. When we're dealing with the Pakistani Muslim community, we're dealing with several components, where this one seems to be just another feature, but quite a significant feature, because all the other components with reference to the Pakistani Muslim community tend to be internal. And what I mean by that are things like honor killings. That's eternal. Female genital mutilation, that's internal. When you're talking about the definition of kidnapping, that's internal. When you're looking at, say, first cousin marriages, that's internal. All those things, England are having issues with. Sharia law, I mean, Lloyd did a fantastic preempt last year, or was it the year before, Lloyd, where you were talking about the financial investments of the rich Arab countries that are investing in the education and the political system and influencing the Islamic directive of Sharia in America and England and Europe. And now we're actually seeing the manifestations of that. I don't think it's a coincidence that we're discussing the Sharia and the Sharia law implementation in England right now, just as this is happening. I don't think that that's a coincidence. I think that's, I think there's something behind that as well. So there are, in my estimation, there are a lot of components in this. They all seem to go back to the Pakistani Muslim community, but this is the one that is now affecting people in, or where it has been for, say, more than 30, 40 years. But this is now sort of like reached a point of critical mass. I think it's reached a critical mass as far as the crimes are concerned, and I think it's reached a critical mass as far as the Pakistani Muslim community of this country is concerned. And notice what I said, this country, because when you're listening to the news, certain news channels, they're only talking as though to suggest it's isolated incidences in certain towns. This is not in certain towns. This is in 50-odd cities in this country. This is a pattern, okay? And you can't even, if you had the situation in Rochdale, okay, fine, that's a situation. If you had a situation in Wrexham, okay, it's a coincidence. If you had it in, say, Luton, well, that's bizarre. But when you're talking of a systematic tapestry of the same crime, the same modus operandi up and down the country during the same period of time, serious questions have to be
at least 50 towns in the UK. I just want to say thank you to Cheeky Shaky, or Cheeky Shiki. Thank you very much. Finally caught a live. Thank you, Lloyd, for all your hard work, and God bless. PC and Thunderous. Well, no, thank you, Cheeky Shiki. Really, we do appreciate it. This is horrendous. This is organized. I don't think that any of us, any of the watching subscribers and viewers, need to be told it's organized. However, the government seems to be woefully blind, almost willfully blind, if not implicit. And this is disturbing. Someone mentioned, can I bring up something? Because you mentioned the infiltration of the universities, Thunderous, and
yes,
let me bring this up. So, for instance, I want to bring up two plans, one by the Muslim Brotherhood and one by Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda is an offshoot of the Muslim Brotherhood because the founder of Al-Qaeda was a Muslim Brotherhood member. They have a 20-year plan with 7 steps, 7 phases. The first phase, I'll talk about this, known as the Awakening. This has already been carried out and lasted from 2000 to 2003, right? Kicked off by the September 11th terrorist attacks. That was the starting gun. That was the beginning. September 11th was the beginning, right? And September 11th was to awaken the Muslims, to show them how powerful we are, right? The battlefield was open up, and the Americans and their allies became closer and easier as a target, right? Its message can now be heard everywhere. Then opening the eyes. The terrorists hope to make the Western conspiracy aware of the Islamic community. Now, you know they exist, right? So Iraq should become the center for all global operations with an army set up there and bases established in the Arabic states. We had ISIS. There are 200 at least Islamic terror groups. The top 20 religious terror groups, in fact, more than just the top 20, are all Muslim. The third phase, rising and standing up until 2010, the focus on Syria. And we've seen Syria go south. Fourth phase, right? The fifth phase. So we're talking about attacks that are carried out. Now, this doesn't mean that every step has been fulfilled exactly as they write here, but this is their intention, right? And there will be, the Islamic army will instigate the fight between the believers and the non-believers, right? There's a fight going on, and we need to admit it. We need to accept. And then definitive victory. So Al-Qaeda has a plan, but let me talk about this quickly. This is the Muslim Brotherhood plan, right? 5-phase plan for infiltration and an American coup. Discreet and secret establishment of elite leadership, already implemented in America. Then gradually appear on the public scene, exercise and utilize public activities. And it says here we've succeeded in implementing the stage already. Right? We've achieved a great deal of its important goals, infiltrating various sectors of the government, gaining religious institutions, senior scholars at universities, gaining public support and sympathy, and establishing a shadow government within the government. Right? The escalation phase 3. So, utilizing mass media, currently in progress, open public confrontation with the government through political pressure. And we are aggressively implementing this. We're seeing this all across Europe, all across the US. Training on the use of weapons domestically and overseas in anticipation of 0 hour. And then seizing power to establish the Islamic nation under which all parties and Islamic groups are united. These people are fanatical, and these people are deadly serious in their plans.
I don't know if you've seen that Lebanese lady from America. She appears on a lot of news time television programs, but she discussed this in more depth in regards to the Muslim Brotherhood, that they coined also the word Islamophobia, which is what the Labour Party actually took on a few years ago. And some of the descriptors of this Islamophobia, one of them includes, if you do not accept Palestine as an original Muslim Arab state, then that is Islamophobic. You're not allowed to talk or draw anything about the prophet or the false prophet Muhammad. You can't depict anything to do with Islam or make comments about Islam being, you're not allowed to talk about a final caliphate. You're not allowed to talk about Islam or terrorism or the links to terrorism or grooming gangs, which is why there has been this massive cover-up with this rape scandal on our British girls. But in regards to this 100-year plan that this Lebanese woman was talking about, this plan, some people are saying, like news reporters will say, no, this is just a conspiracy theory of the far right. All the paperwork they're showing is not actually real documents. This was seized. This was used in a court of law in America when they were banging up away terrorists. This is official documents that they made themselves. And this whole plan, you've got the taqiyya involved as well, the deceivement of non-Muslims and infidels. You know, they are serious on this. They don't just want to take over a country. They want to take over the whole world. And that's why
you're referring to the Holy Land trial, which is the largest terror funding trial that happened in the US, over $12 million. And they discovered 80 boxes in a secret basement, in a hidden compartment, effectively, in this Muslim Brotherhood man's house. And he and his wife were caught. They fled the country, but they were caught filming the struts of a bridge. And they discovered the explanatory memorandum of the general strategic goals of the group, dated 91. And it says the role of the Muslim Brotherhood in America is to destroy America. The process of settlement, this is migration. The process of migration is a civilizational jihadist process.
Yeah.
So hijrah, which is Muslim immigration, is a form of warfare. It is a form of jihad, as they tell us here.
And you know, sorry, I just wanted to say quickly, there was a Muslim preacher not so long ago, that a video I found on X from the UK, and he was talking about money that they receive from welfare or from our government is a class of jizya. That is our jizya for them.
You've taken my thunder there, Ro, because that was I tell you, that was Anjum Chowdhury, where he said benefit payments were a form of jizya, and I wanted to comment on that, but I will comment on that in a moment when you finish. So forgive me for interrupting. Yeah, bang on point.
Yeah. So the Muslim Brotherhood must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying Western civilization from within, sabotaging its miserable house by their hands and the hands of the believers so that it is eliminated and Allah's religion is made victorious over all other religions. So, unless you have this understanding, you have not prepared yourself for jihad yet. It is a Muslim's duty and destiny to perform jihad and work wherever he is and wherever he lands until the final hour comes. So these guys are up to something. And that leads to their 5-phase plan for implementing it. What we're seeing in Europe and America today is organized. It is funded. And yes, your welfare money, your naive welfare money, is paying them to destroy and replace it. So back to you guys.
Yeah, I don't know. There is when I said that there's a greater context, I want us to bear in mind, because I'm going to say one or two things or make a comment or have an opinion on this that probably goes a little bit beyond the Pakistani Muslim community, because I'm looking at things from not just a global perspective, but also from an England perspective that goes back to the 70s. You know, when you think about it, if I'm going to reel off some names and you tell me what they've got in common: R. Kelly, P. Diddy, Jeffrey Epstein, Prince Andrew, Lord Mountbatten, Ed Heath, Jimmy Savile, Rolf Harris, Clement Floyd, Cyril Smith, Stuart Ord, Africa Bambaataa. Can anybody tell me what all these names and others have got in common? They've all got one thing in common: child pornography. We've also had recently the BBC newsreader, I forget what his name is. He only got a suspended sentence. One of their main news reporters.
Hugh Edwards.
Hugh Edwards. We're seeing a systematic pattern of actions, deviant actions taken against children. Okay, fine. I'm not trying to distract us away from the topic that we're discussing, which is with the involvement of the Pakistani Muslim community. What I'm saying is that by extension, there is something bigger than the Pakistani Muslim community. You have to ask questions. Why is there a reluctance on the political establishment to investigate this unique situation that England finds itself in now? And there seems to be something bigger. I've got a documentary on my channel called Paedophiles in Parliament, done by the excellent reporter Sonia Poulton. So I would probably encourage people, if they've got the time, to look at that, then look at all the other things taking place in the world today. And I just want to make one more comment on this as well, when you're looking at the rest of the world. In the past 4 years, over 300,000 children have gone missing from the Mexican border over into America, and nobody knows where they are. I've got a link I was going to show up on a screen share, perhaps I will do it later on. And the only reason I looked at it was because if anybody's watched the interview with Donald Trump and Joe Rogan, Donald Trump made the comment. It was the fact that Joe Rogan didn't challenge the number that made me think, let me look into this a little bit more then. And it turns out 300,000 children have gone missing over the Mexican border.
Mm-hmm.
There is a serious problem with what's happening to children. I know the discussion tonight is with reference to the Pakistani Muslim community, and I don't want to go off topic, but I'm just encouraging the audience to maybe look at something as well. And there's a pattern developing, not just in this country, but by extension, something going on in the rest of the world. And just to conclude on my monologue now, Australia has the same problem England are having with grooming gangs. Australia have got the same problem as well. It's not unique to England.
They've got no.
Yeah, it's not only Pakistanis. It's Afghanis. Afghanis are 69 times more likely. Say in Germany, an Afghan is 69 times more likely than an actual German to be involved in some kind of sexual offense. Then you're looking at the Sudanese and others, Africans as well. So yes, it's definitely. I think there was one year, I think 2019, every single rape, I think in Norway, was done by an immigrant, for instance.
Can I just comment on that? So there was something Rome brought up earlier on, or maybe it was yourself, Lloyd, about the statistics. And when you look at the numbers, they were saying that the number of rapes being done by Englishmen, or the demographic of the indigenous, versus the number of, say, immigrants or the Pakistani Muslim community, numbers can be very well collected and collated in a manner to mislead, though they could be accurate. And by that I mean, for instance, anybody that's done any study on Darwinian evolution, and where they turn around and say that human beings share the same number of genome as 97% of the genome of a chimp, that can fool a lot of people. But the numbers that are extrapolated are very selective. When you're looking at, let's say 100,000 people have been raped in this country, and let's say 70,000 of those have been done by, say, white indigenous men. That's from a population of over 60 million. Okay, so you could say 30 million. 30 million are responsible for 70,000. But when you're looking at the remaining 30,000 that have to be accounted for, that's being committed by the remaining 15%, of which 5% are the Pakistani Muslim community.
Yep.
So the ratio of rapists from, say, the white indigenous is probably 1 in, say, 70,000, whereas the ratio in the Pakistani Muslim community is probably 1 in 70. Can anybody see a problem with the way that the media are fudging figures in order to misrepresent the reality of what's taking place?
Yeah, of course. I've seen a few times news reporters turn around and say, well, those that are on the political left, they'll say, did you know that most of the sexual assaults or sexual crimes in the UK are committed by white Christian men or white indigenous men? And it's only every now and then you'll see someone that has got a bit of savvy about them that will actually turn around and say, well, that's because we're a white indigenous population as a majority. That's why that is. And if you can't,
however, the
figures,
gang rapes is where these immigrants are well overrepresented, because the issue is not single individual random rapes. The issue is organized, planned gang rapes.
Yeah.
And this is where the immigrants are heavily overrepresented. That is a completely separate category. And if we look here in Germany, for instance, this is from the Bundeskriminalamt, right? That's from the German police. They finally started to release some figures. Afghans and Pakistanis are 16 times more likely to be implicated in rapes than German citizens. And don't forget, these will be organized rape gangs, right? So look at Romania, Bulgaria. That's not good. Russia, Ukraine, East Asia. But notice Africa and these countries, this is really bad, right?
And let the Germans be thankful that they're allowed access to that information, because in the UK, the government has blocked any media or anybody from this information because they don't want us to confront this issue.
Right. No, true. It's only slowly trickling out now. And I mean, your immigrants are at least 3 times more likely to be involved in some kind of major offense of that type. Yes, Thunderous?
Yeah, I was just going to say, when you look at the countries as well, look at the attitudes that they have towards women. That's one thing to bear in mind. And the other thing to bear in mind is, are those countries high proportions? Are those high proportion of countries as far as viewing pornography is concerned as well? And you'll probably find that they are. Now, look at the mindset of these people. They already come from a culture and a religion. I mean, if you look at the Islamic religion, women are basically chattel. You know, they're just incubators, and they are viewed as only possessing 50% the intelligence of a man. Okay, so they're already viewing women in a very poor way. But then they watch pornography. The problem with pornography, and there are many, is that when you're looking at it from the lens of a Muslim or from these countries, is when they're watching pornography, what they're looking at is white women having sex with lots of men. That's the perspective that they have, white women. So that when they come over to, say, Europe, they think white women are gagging for it. They don't realize that these white women have gone into porn because they've come from a socially broken background themselves. Nobody willingly says that I want to go into that because that's what a normal functioning human being would want to do. Okay, these women are themselves have gone into it, are broken, but they don't see that. What they see is white, beautiful blondes, beautiful brunettes with green eyes, blue eyes, having sex with men. They think to themselves, well, if that's what it's like over in England, I'm going to go there and I'm going to have sex with loads of women. But the fact of the matter is that's not how it works. But that's the mentality that they've got. And when you're already in an ideology that teaches that women are trash and white women are trash, because I was brought up in the Pakistani Muslim community, I already know what their mentality is. They and I've said this so people can verify this on Thaddeus's channel. Is it Reason Dancers? And the other one is on the Gin and Tonic Show that you'd probably have to go through their back catalogue, where I've systematically said repeatedly that when you're brought up in the Pakistani Muslim community, white people are trash.
Yep.
That's how they raise you. They bring you up with a mindset that white people are trash. Anybody that challenges that statement is a fraud and a liar and is hopelessly ignorant of the reality.
I've said on my channel, and I think that Westerners need to really accept this. But it doesn't have to be everybody, but it's enough of them. But black people are generally taught to hate and to dislike white people, to see them in a very low manner. So few people realize that this is actually far more common than they realize. It's not a lot like they'll necessarily tell you, but wait till you leave the room and it's just the black guys there. You'd be amazed what comes out of the conversation. You'd be amazed their real feelings, what they're not revealing. So you cannot be naive. You must understand, if you're nice to people, they'll just take advantage. It's not necessarily they'll reciprocate. And you have too many feelings-based people who don't think. This is another German stat: immigration and crime. Afghans and Africans are proportionally 40 times and 70 times more involved in gang rapes than Germans. So
I read somewhere the other day that the Pakistani statistics was 173 times more likely than a British person to be involved with this grooming scandal or rape or any kind of sexual offense. 173.
Yeah, so it's much worse in the UK because it's gone far further. So in Germany, foreigners account for 40% of homicide, rape, and burglary, and 30% of assault. Now you're looking at 13% of the population is guilty of 40+% of the crime. So for homicide, a tiny minority of men. Now, when we say 13%, that's all immigrants. Now, if you look at men between, say, 18 and 25, 18 and 28, as your active criminal element within that, that's going to be 3%, 2%, right? So a couple of percent of the population are responsible for nearly half the murders. And these are not Germans, right? 37% of rapes, right? So a tiny minority is doing this en masse. I mean, this is problematic: burglary and assault. And the source again, Bundeskriminalamt, okay? Bund, Tatverdächtige, Deutsch, nicht Deutsch, German, non-German. So suspects, okay? So criminal suspects or perpetration suspects, German, not German. And this is not good. I mean, we can see this. You can get this at least now in Germany, but the UK, we're still not seeing the full figures.
No.
And this is just how this is.
And what's worse is a lot of people will turn around and say, why don't we ever hear anyone in the Muslim community condemn those or their own family members? And what we have seen as well in some news reports a few months ago on GB News, some of these rapists and pedophiles that were getting put away, their family were coming with them to the court cases, and they were crying in the gallery. And they were saying, oh, Allahu Akbar, we'll be with you. God be with you. And, we'll be waiting for you when you come out. Forget about the enemy and all this stuff. They were very supportive of those. They didn't care. They didn't condemn any of them.
They see them as victims. They don't see the children being. Am I allowed to use the word what actually taking place? Because I've heard someone's in one of the
YouTube's a little fussy about this, so maybe the word grape is a good choice.
I have to use the word grape. Okay, so the word grape then, they were actually blaming the victims as being the problem. This goes back to what I said about the mindset. That when you've already been brought up and reared with the mindset that you're alien to this white indigenous population and you have to behave in a very insular manner, they find it very hard to grasp, to break out of that traditional thinking. So when these people are going to court and getting their sentences, for them to hurl abuse at the victims, to me, is not a surprise in the slightest. This is the kind of reaction that I have come to expect from these people.
It was their fault for tempting them to do it. That's what they say, don't they? That's what I am.
Their scholars say that. Ahmad Didat and Zakir Naik recently, because it was brought up, I knew about this because it was on my previous channel, that YouTube, before it got deleted, where the attitude of the Muslim scholar for $1 is, if a woman gets raped, the likelihood is she's behaving immodest, and that's the problem. The problem is with her and the way that she's dressed. Now, let's even if that was the case, and it's never the case, what is the scholar, if he's already somebody raised up in the community to be looked at for sort of like guidance, understanding, and education, then you're looking for a justification in order for your actions. When your own scholar, your own religious leader justifies it, then it takes away from the guilt that you're supposed to have from the crime that you've actually committed, because you've now got somebody justifying it for you, and it's all down to the person that's being addressed. And they take no consideration that You know, the scripture in Hebrew, no, Corinthians says, the Apostle Paul says, when I speak to a Jew, I become as a Jew, to the man, to a Gentile, to the Gentile, to a man without law, I become as a man without law, though I'm under law towards God. The Apostle Paul did not say, when I spoke to the Hebrew, or when I spoke to the Jew, I spoke in Hebrew, or when I spoke to the Greek, I spoke in Greek. He was meaning you adopt their attitudes, their cultures, and their customs.
When in Rome, you do as the Romans do.
Exactly that. But the problem is the Pakistani Muslim community, they want to behave in a very insular manner. They don't want to adapt the customs and cultures and attitudes of the country that they're in. This is why this is why you have this problem globally. Wherever that there is a Muslim community, toxicity, friction, schism, and tension start to arise. It doesn't take long, and you do not have it with any other culture or religion or identity. Just the Pakistani, or should I say, the Muslim community. So it comes as no surprise that when these things are happening, it is always somebody else's fault, not their fault.
Well, you were asking me, Rowan, about showing where I can some Sharia law references. This is one. This is from the Reliance of the Traveler, right? And someone asked, who's the traveler? There's Google for that, but for those who find themselves incapable of understanding how search engines work, people who travel are called travelers. And when you're away from home and you're not in front of your imam and with your community and at your mosque, you're traveling, you have a little handy reference guide that tells you what to do and what to think. That's why it's called the Reliance of the Traveler and the Tools of the Worshipper. So traveling is what you do when you are going somewhere. Right. So the Muslim is the brother. This is called harming the friends of Allah. Right. Now, must understand these words are interpreted. Muslims always say it's how it's interpreted. Well, they interpret these words differently than the way that we do. So the Muslim is the brother of the Muslim. He does not oppress him, hang back from coming to his aid, or belittle him. So there's nothing your fellow Muslim can do wrong that you will go against him, because that would bring shame on the Muslim community. So it is sufficiently wicked for someone to demean his fellow Muslim. See, because to claim that some Muslim did some bad is to claim that Islam is less than perfect. This brings shame, right? What do you do with a girl that brings shame on the family? She is unalived by her family in an honor unaliving, right? By the same token, here you have this rule that takes precedence here. So that's P51.0 in the Reliance. The Muslim is the brother of the fellow Muslim. So I'll look for another reference that I'll bring up. And any thoughts, guys?
Yeah, because I wanted to make this abhorrently clear right now that a lot of this also has to do not just with the Islamic view of the non-believers, but teachings as well. And although we don't have them to hand, because I spoke to you before we started the live stream and asked if we could get some, I do remember some that we have discussed in the past, and I've seen them with my own eyes, as you have yourself, because you were the one that shared them with me. There are verses in Reliance of the Traveler and Heavenly Ornaments that tells you how to perform ghusl or wudu when you have split the skin between a child's anus and vagina.
I'll show those things. Now, let me get to that. So let me see here.
Many more as well. Even verses talking about how to perform ghusl or wudu if you have intercourse with animals or dead people and stuff like that. So it's quite not respected, as you say. It's quite normal, if you like, that these teachings, they don't seem barbaric to them as believers.
Yeah. So, for instance, the lie which is spoken to settle the matters between two contending parties is not written. Now, are we contending with the Muslims? Yes, we are. So if they lie to us to settle a matter, Allah doesn't record that as a lie. See, Allah does not record that as a lie. And so I'll look for another term here.
Takia.
No, this word. So, for instance, I did not hear Muhammad permit untruth or lying in anything people say, except for 3 conditions. And one of those was to settle disagreements, right? In smoothing over differences. So I'll look for the word smoothing again. It'll come back up. and we'll see the context of how they mean smoothing over. So that'll take a moment while it's busy searching. There we go. In disagreements between people, you should smooth them over through deception. That's explicit in Islamic law. And I can show several examples of that.
Yeah.
So it's obligatory for Muslims to lie to you.
And that's why you see a lot of Muslim news reporters saying some of the stuff that they do, and they promote this anti-Islam, anti-racist rhetoric, and to stay away from the far right because Islam is a religion of peace. They'll come up with all this nonsense as deceit to get the left.
Did you say yellow peace, like warm yellow peace, camel peace, maybe?
Yeah. to get the left side, political supporters on board with them, and then that's when they've created then a divide between the populace of the right and left, and they've divided society as such with these laws, with these deceptions.
I think it's also while we're on the subject as well, to discuss. There are probably two verses in the Quran that we can extrapolate here. One of them is the Muslim mindset that all non-Muslims are the worst of creatures. So already there's one thing that we can look at, and another one that I thought, which goes back to what you were saying earlier on, Ron, about Anjem Chowdhury saying that the benefit system is a form of jizya. I remember that. But I also remembered at the time thinking to myself, well, I guess that Al-Nisa of chapter 4, verse 4, where it says, all that your right hand possesses, could it be then that they've misconstrued that, or because of the Muslim mindset, do they consider that these children are their possessions in the way that they treat them? Now, the reason why I say that is because first of all, you don't have to be married to something that you possess to have sex with it. This Al-Nisa verse 4 makes that clear. But also, when you consider some fathers have actually gone to the house to try and get their daughters, the police have protected the men inside the house with the daughter, even though they can see that they're being plied with alcohol. They're clearly not in a sober state. And the fathers have actually been warned or arrested and advised that if they continue, they'll be charged with what is it? Being
public disorder or something?
No, it's when you're
racial incitement.
No, stalking. That's it. They could be arrested for stalking their own daughter. That's what came out, and that's what made me think of Al-Nisa chapter 4, verse 4, where it talks about being of your own possessions. Now, the other thing is we're talking about the sexual crime here. Can I say that sexual crime? Is that okay to say, Lloyd? I'm not going to upset anybody.
YouTube's not going to monetize this for sure, man.
All right. So the sexual crime that's taking place, but let's have it right. If you look at the numbers of girls involved altogether, which we don't know, you're probably, let's say, for instance, 10,000.
No, they're talking up to 1 million crimes.
No, Ron, I totally understand, but I just wanted to go with a minimal commitment. And the reason why I want to say this is that we're looking at the sexual crime on, say, one person. There were men that were having sexual relations or sexual acts with these girls. They were paying on credit.
Yeah, they had boxes.
They had a tally box for credit that they had to pay for at the end of the month. But it's not just the sex crime that we have to consider here. These were underage girls plied with alcohol. That is also a crime. Okay, plying them with drugs is also a crime. The very definition, going back to the Muslim community at the beginning when I said that some of the things that were taking place were insular, the definition of kidnapping had to be changed in this country because of what parents were doing with their children with forced marriages, okay, or cousin marriages. How do you define kidnapping now? So at what point do you have to ask yourself the question, were these children technically held against their own will, false imprisonment? So when you're looking at one child being treated in this manner, you have to add drugs, you have to have alcohol, you have to have the underage for the alcohol and for the drugs and for the sex acts. And then you have to, at what point is this not false imprisonment? So when you start looking at it, when you start breaking it down and looking at each fundamental crime that was involved here, it's very easy to look at, say, the sexual act that took place. But I'm of the opinion you have to look at all the other crimes that are involved here. And that's when you start getting into the real serious millions.
Yeah.
Because this was systematic.
And touching on the alcohol and drug issue, this is what last night I watched Uncensored, Piers Morgan and Mehdi Hassan, that news reporter.
Don't make me swear, mate. I tell you, in my top 10 men, in my top 10 men that I want to have a fight with in the ring, 3 5-minute rounds or 5 3-minute rounds, right? After Bono, the lead singer of U2, Mehdi Ahmed is probably number 4.
So last night he turned around and he was touching on this himself. He was saying, you know, when you hear these right-wing conspiracy theories with this gang grooming and they talk about the girls were drugged and they were given alcohol, does that sound like Islam to you? That's what he said to Piers Morgan. Now, this is where what he didn't say. It's not the Muslims that are drinking and taking the drugs. They're forcing the girls to, because they think in their warped minds that these English or British girls, white working girls, have to have drugs or alcohol to be able to, you know, take their clothes off and all this stuff, and that they're, you know, that's what they can use as a tool, if you like, to get them to do what they want them to do. And like you were saying, they even had honesty boxes at some of these places. They didn't just grape them once or twice. This went on for years. They used the same victims for a very long time, and they set them up in rooms so that multiple men could go in, take advantage, and not only just do what they were doing to them, but do it in a religious fashion as well, because they were religiously calling them names, and they were degrading them like you wouldn't believe. And they didn't even have to pay. They had to just tick their name and sign and say, we'll pay later. They were treated as fresh meat.
Yeah. And the thing is, it doesn't tell when you start analyzing the Islamic religion, at least a verse 4, you know, that they're treated as possessions, that they're the worst of creatures. It doesn't really help any further when Muhammad himself had a child bride. So you've got the religious leaders, you've got the Quran. So you got your God backing it, you got your religious leaders backing it, and your own prophet himself had sex. Well, for want of a better word, I'd rather use stronger words, but people might get offended with facts because truth has become hate speech. That Aisha herself at the age of 9. And now I just want to raise something else on this, because something that people like Mehdi do is that they do false equivocations. Okay. The false equivocation is, oh, but what about that French woman that got raped by all those white men? Sorry, graped by all those white men. Sorry, it was a Freudian slip. In France, where the husband had all his friends come in and were performing sexual acts against her. Oh, what about the Church of England? What about the Catholic Church? They have their problems too. I agree with you. The Church of England and the Catholic Church have had serious issues with reference to pedophilia. In fact, the Church of England had their own word for the boys. They used to call them catamites, little boys kept for sexual purposes. However, there is a monumental difference between pedophilia and child graping. There's a complete difference between the two. The interesting thing is, you can actually go to the Islamic sources and rationalize a justification for the acts that they're doing. You cannot go to the Bible and find a rationalization or a justification. So it's a false equivocation because, one, those are two separate crimes. They're totally different. And also the mannerisms of people at sometimes, and I dare say it happens in many other areas, because the Catholic Church and the Church of England, the police force, politics, entertainment, music and movies, they are not cleansed from this problem. Every institution in society has this problem. Okay, so
if you look at these issues, those are in the West, those are considered both a sin and a crime.
Yes.
In Islam, it's just Tuesday.
Yes, that's the
point. Let's say it for what it is.
Also, if you just pause a second, thank you very much to Cheeky Shiki for becoming a member, and welcome, Mariette Mendelo. However, also we must understand that if you look at teachers are something like 8 times more likely than a priest to sexually assault a student. So maybe we need to shut schools down and maybe we need to ban the school system entirely, right?
Exactly.
If you look, right, so there are other areas where this is far more. Now, of course, everyone's going to point the finger at the church because that's something the church should not be doing. But within Islam, this is not considered a sin or a crime. If I can bring this up from the Sharia, this is from Al-Ghazali, from the Ihya Ulum al-Din, volume 2. There is no sin in the lie which benefits a Muslim or removes a harm from him, right? The Prophet said, he who commits fornication shall keep it secret, right? With the secrecy of Allah. And to disclose an obscene act is an obscene act. For a Muslim to disclose a secret which a fellow Muslim wants to keep is obscene, right? So every man should save his life, property, and honor by taking recourse to lies. And if an inquiry is made to you about a secret thing of your brother Muslim, you can deny it to preserve his honor, right? And if harm is caused more than benefit in the case of speaking the truth, then speaking the truth may be avoided. So words can carry double meanings. So uttering, yes?
Sorry. This is what really frustrates me. I just want to touch, because this is what I'm finding more alarming and more frustrating at the moment. It's verses like these that nobody are talking about, be it on GB News, Talk TV, BBC, ITV, Sky News, whatever. They all talk about the grooming problem. Oh, it's a cultural problem. It's not. This is a religious problem. And they'll say, yeah, but for the most part, most Muslims are good people. We're not talking about the people, right? If you go and target a Muslim individually for their just because of their faith, then yes, you are. You shouldn't be doing that. But what we need to focus on and talk about is the religion itself and what it teaches and lets people take away from it. That's what we need to have open debate about, because if we don't, then this is going to continue and to go on, and it will get bigger and bigger.
Ron, what you're saying is bang on point, mate, because what you're basically saying is Muslims don't define Islam. The Quran and Hadith define Islam, not Muslims.
Actually, Sharia defines Islam. Sharia is the final source, the final meaning. That is where the buck stops, at the Sharia.
Lloyd, this is where I wanted to say, and I didn't know if it was distasteful to say, but when you look at, say, other channels that deal with the problems of Islam, they pretty much stay in what I would say safe quarters of academia and such. They're not touching on the grassroots reality of what's taking place in the communities. And by that, I mean, I remember in 2020, when the holes in the narrative broke free, and there was this big uproar in certain apologist communities that this will destroy Islam, will destroy, that's it, it's finished. And I turned around and said then, it will make no difference at all. And it hasn't made a difference. It's made a difference for some individuals at a very low level, but not numbers that are anywhere significant. It is, as you've said, Lloyd, the Sharia, that's the problem.
It will strengthen them, if anything. It will embolden their community to stand up against us from speaking about it, and they'll put this Islamophobia spin on it. That's what they'll do.
This is what I'm saying. Do you find it an interesting timing that we're discussing Sharia law course in England just after this is happening, and whilst they're also trying to define what the word Islamophobia is or attacking Muslimness? Because when you really analyze it, and I said this when we were having this discussion many weeks ago with Lloyd, that it's not just in local media or say academia, local areas where this is going to be a problem, where in the courts or if in the streets, this is going to affect academia. Because if you're attacking, if it's Islamophobic, then academia will have to draw the line somewhere, because then the Muslims will turn around and say, well, that's Islamophobia. You're basically trying to deny that Muhammad exists. That's Islamophobic. You're trying to deny Mecca doesn't exist. That's Islamophobic. Yeah. So one has to be careful, and it'll be, as Lloyd has brought out so many times, the Sharia is the foundation of the Islamic communities in this country, hence why they want Sharia courts. They're not interested in the Quran having 75 versions of the Arabic. It's not affecting them. That's not having any effect. The Sharia, that's the problem.
And in regards to the Sharia law courts, all news sources and media channels are saying that there's over 80 Sharia law courts. There's not. There's 135. So then they're even lying about the number, and we shouldn't have a shadow government in our country. We should all be under one law, and that's it.
Yeah, but understand, for the audience, you need to understand, and also Piers Morgan is an Islamic apologist as well. He loves to call everyone an Islamophobe. He believes that for you to, if you don't like Islam, you're an Islamophobe, and he doesn't seem to be concerned about the fact that many ex-Muslims are living in fear for their lives. Thunderous can't show his face because people will see him on the street and people will unalive him, right? So Piers Morgan doesn't seem too concerned about that either. Piers Morgan also needs to get his head out of his butt. But notice here, within the Sharia, we can see that lying is obligatory. Deception is obligatory for Muslims. So this is something that we need to take at their word. It is compulsory for a Muslim to lie to you. Now, that particular Muslim may not. However, you just don't know. And when it comes to issues that cause embarrassment to the Muslim community, they are entitled to lie because it keeps the image of Islam clean. And if they bring shame and dishonor on the image of Islam, that's a sin. So remember, revealing an obscene act is the obscene act, not the obscene act that they did. But revealing the fact of something ugly is the actual crime in Islam, which is insanity. So this is a completely different set of values.
And I think, Lloyd, what people don't understand, right, with what you're bringing out there, and I'm 57 years old this year, and I was a naughty boy in the 80s and the 90s. I've had to iron one or two men out, got in prison for a bit of violence and such, only on a few occasions. But the one thing you'll find when you're dealing with criminality is people will inform on each other. It's just a standard, right? There is no law amongst thieves. It's every man for himself. However, with the Muslim community, you'll notice that they don't grasp upon each other. They pretty much, their bonds are tight and strict. You don't find people informing on each other. So by extension, when people are talking about, well, maybe the sisters knew, the cousins knew, the fathers knew, they probably did. There is no way on earth you can hide this in the Islamic community and nobody not know about it. But because of their insular behavior, because of pride, you want us to understand these cultures are very much pride driven as well. Not just pride as far as Islam is going to bring in reproach on Islam is concerned, but you have to bear in mind that the Sikh community and the Hindu community, they have a very similar culture. I mean, the Sikh, Hindus, and Muslims, they share the same language. They share the same dress code. They share the same food. They come from the same region of the world. So it's also pride showing their face in front of these other ideologies as well. So when you're talking about not other say crimes and criminal activity and such, people inform on each other. It happens. It's part of the criminal code, as it were.
Yeah, but that's like the Cosa Nostra. That's like the code of silence in the mafia. The Cosa Nostra.
Yeah. But
really
it doesn't exist though. They have a code of Cosa Nostra not to grasp, but informers do grasp. That's why they have Wipro. The point I'm trying to make is there's no need to have witness protection for Islam because the Muslims will go down for the crimes and they won't inform on any other family member. That's the point I'm trying to make.
And they'll get a smaller punishment than anyone else would as well.
Yeah.
Because we are a two-tier judiciary.
And it teaches how to give a misleading impression. So they teach you how to lie.
But it also makes for an interesting point as well, because when you're looking at, say, why is it that the government of this country is not looking to have an independent investigation or launch an investigation into what's going on here? There could be some legal reasons why. But I am of the opinion when you look at the list of names that I mentioned earlier, Jimmy Savile, Ed Heath, Mountbatten, and other names who have allegedly been linked with, but we all know they have been, but allegedly, we have to use the word allegedly. There could be something where, and this is just something I'm going to throw out there, is it possible or is it feasible that the Muslims have been used as procurers for people in higher office than they are, and by stopping the investigation,
that's a very strong possibility.
Or not, sir.
that they have been known as procurers, and the few people that have been arrested are like patsies. They're sort of like the collateral damage to make the legal system look like they're working. But there are many layers in all of this, protecting certain people in high office. Because one has to bear in mind, Cyril Smith, who was known to have been involved in child sex scandals, was an MP for Rochdale. So, you know, there are other MPs linked with this too. So we really do not know who else is involved in this. And maybe that they're having to shut off an investigation by some legal process so that it doesn't go further and break down the whole establishment.
But luckily,
if I can mention something, Ron, please go ahead.
Okay, luckily, Nigel Farage and Reform UK, they've promised that if they do not do an inquiry, they will raise the funds to do an independent one themselves. That is good, because
and then he's going to find Tommy Robinson guilty of various crimes. That means that he deserves to be in prison for much longer, actually. That's my problem with Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage throws Tommy under the bus every opportunity he can.
Of course. I mean, I'm in the middle of that kind of like that eventually, I believe, will sort itself out. I believe that will end that friction between them. But in regards to this inquiry, why I believe that Labour are not doing this inquiry is because there is so much that needs to come to light. That if the British public knew, especially just after what happened in Southport and all the other incidents that have gone on because of that attack in Southport, the British public will be up in arms. They have simply had enough. They know this. They know that, and at the moment they're pretending to be out of touch with the working class British public. There's 78% of the British public want an independent inquiry. Any political party would normally turn around and say, take that as a right, we need to do this. Labour should be now doing it, because they know if they don't, by the next election, they ain't going to have any help. We'll be able to hold them to account for it. So if they're not doing this, there must be some very serious either accusations or something that they know about that they really do not want people knowing, because it will cause an uproar.
I think, look, I mean, they're afraid that the UK government seems afraid that if the truth came out, it would lead to social unrest. Let's put it that way. And rightfully so, understandably so. Now, of course, they'll take a knee for George Floyd, the drug addict and violent criminal, but because you are the those uppity white people that won't give your land over peacefully to those brown invaders, well, the government doesn't seem to stand on your side. You know.
Well, that's evident, because if you recall, several weeks ago when I raised the issue of female genital mutilation and the number of clinics, NHS clinics in this country, I don't know if I can. Do you mind if I screen share that point, Lloyd?
Yeah. Let me just add something from this is John 8:44, I believe. You are of your father, the devil. It is your will to practice, and the lusts of your father, it is your will to do. Now think what these gangs are doing, right? He was a murderer from the beginning, and many of these girls have been killed. One of them has even been apparently served as food to hide the body.
Kebab.
Oh,
yeah.
The Liverpool
and
girl.
He standeth not in truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speak a lie, he speak of his own, for he is a liar. Now, in Christianity, we know clearly that lying is not permissible.
No.
Right? Lying is a sin. Right? Thou shalt not bear false witness. In Islam, it is compulsory to bear false witness. And in fact, in the Sharia, and this is religious law, sacred law, they speak of permissible lying. Right? They have chapters on permissible lying. And then, of course, they go on. It is permissible to lie if the goal is permissible. Right? And then they go on. It is not unlawful to lie when these aims can only be attained through lying. If lying is the only way to achieve the goal, then lie, right? And it says also you have to hold your tongue. And then, of course, they have a chapter on obligatory lying. So, right? So that'll be up here. But you saw the title. You saw the headline in the index, right? Obligatory lying. So let me just see if I can find it. It's up here somewhere. But you saw it within the headline earlier, obligatory lying. It is in Islam, it is obligatory to lie. So they've got different categories. They've got different types of deception, permissible lies, obligatory lies, and it is obligatory to lie if the goal is obligatory.
And that's what we were seeing in Palestine. And that's why you see so much propaganda going on in the Middle East right now.
Is here, it is obligatory to lie if the goal is obligatory. Muslims are obligated to lie. Allah is a deceiver. He is a mocker. So, so go ahead, Thunderous.
Yeah, so what I want to do is I just want to show something from something I mentioned several weeks ago with reference to FGM. And
okay, so hold on. Cora, hold on a second. Cora, there's a technical term which describes what you've just said. It's called bullshit. Okay? So, Cora, I've discussed this multiple times on my channel. Muslims lie to you as a gullible fool about the Talmud. They misquote it, they misrepresent it, and then you, as someone who's never read the book, who doesn't understand it, you quote the lies, so you become a convenient propagandist for Muslims. So, unfortunately, if I have to read, and I've done this multiple times, I did last week, in fact, and I can't do this every single time, but I can certainly bring you up here, and then you can tell me your expertise, which will be, the technical word here is fuck all, and we will discuss the Talmud, and I will prove you wrong, and I will humiliate you in public, because we will show that the Talmud does not say what you claim it says, right? And I can do so at length and in detail, and I've done this multiple times. So if you don't mind, get your head out of your ass, and I'm really sick and tired of this, because we can prove definitively, and I have, from the Sharia, lying is obligatory in Islam, and you're going to come here with bullshit and then spread stories. When Jesus was a Jew, you got your religion from the Jews, you get your salvation from the Jews, you got your Bible from the Jews. So please, get your head out your ass, get some facts, maybe go look at my stuff on the Talmud, Google that, you'll find it, get an education. Anyway, moving on. But if I really have to, I can prove you wrong. And you know what you're going to do? You're going to go, well, actually, I'm not going to apologize for my lie because it's actually didn't change the subject. That's always what happens. That's what these good Christians do, right? I don't want to hear that. So, yeah, sorry. Go on, please.
Right. So the reason why I wanted to mention this is I want us to look at this, then look at the current situation that we're in at the moment with the gangs, as it were. So I'm just going to share my screen, if I may.
Sure, please.
Where are we?
I just want to apologize for the decoration.
So I don't know.
Okay, hold on, Marcel. Again, I'm going to ask you politely because look, I'm on YouTube because I have spent copious hours doing research. I can do with the Talmud what I'm doing here with the Sharia. You are wrong. Understand? You are making very broad strokes and you are standing on a very thin ledge. Let's understand that. Now, if you think you're so intelligent, you're going to start quoting the very same things that the Muslims quote because you are a proxy for Islamic propaganda. In other words, you are helping the Muslims. Okay? If you want to do that, my advice to you is, and I'm going to be polite here, you can F off. Okay? If that's your purpose, then pat yourself on the back, run along, and go do dawah somewhere else. Again, I'm not going to derail this by getting off topic, but you need to understand there are vast differences here. These are not equivalences. I know you think they are. You're not as smart about this as you think they are. I'm going to leave that here for now, but seriously, trip over my line again, I'll ban you. I'm not interested in dealing with idiots. You are the problem. You are not the solution. Moving on. Thanks. Thunderous, sorry about that. Just some things annoy me because people have been killed. I dealt with this. It got really bad one time. My friend lost his YouTube channel of over 70,000 subs. People were on his lawn threatening his life. People were threatening our lives. The FBI had to get involved. It was a nasty affair. So really, I am not interested in having this. And trust me, I have skills that you may not have. And if those people want to try me, trust me, they are not the first to try that, and they will not be the last. And in fact, my face might be the last thing they see. Don't try me. Sorry, Thunderous, but this
Right,
really
so,
annoys me. I know people have died because of this
no,
nonsense.
no, that's fine. Where are we? It's not sharing what I wanted to share. And
You're sharing the
I
wrong
think I've just
tab.
sussed it.
Try a different tab, Thunderous.
Right, I'm just going to try a new. Yeah, I wanted to share. I've got several tabs open because I wanted to go through a couple of Right, FGM. I wonder. Hopefully, this is the one that'll open. It should be come up with FGM clinics. Has that come up yet?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So the reason why I brought this up, I've touched on it previously, but there's something else about talking about it and looking at it, and I want to bring something else up with this. Okay. So this is female genital mutilation clinics. Now we all know which ideology is the one that is responsible for female genital mutilation. Okay. So I wanted for people to see for themselves the number of clinics that we've got in this country as a result of this. And I want to bring up the Crown Prosecution Service and their attitude towards FGM. So there we go. Leeds number 2, Liverpool, Birmingham 2, Birmingham 3, Nottingham, London 1, London 2, London 3, London 4, London 5, London 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 FGM clinics in London, Oxford, Bristol. That's nearly 20 FGM clinics we have in this country. Now, the reason I wanted to bring it up is because I want to bring up something else as well related to
Disgusting.
Yeah, it is, but it's even. This is where I want to do the comparison. Okay, so I just want to bring up another screen now, if I may.
Sure.
This one here. Right, can you see? Has that come up now? And it should be the female. It should be the Crown Prosecution Service page.
Mm.
There we go.
Nope.
Right. So this is the
CPS or
this
CPS.
is
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Right. So this is the Crown Prosecution. That's the legal system for this country. So it talks about what female genital mutilation is. Right. Female genital mutilation is a criminal offense. It is a form of violence against women and girls, and in the latter case, it is a child abuse.
But it only happens in Africa, Thunderous, and Britain's an African country.
Why do we have over 20 clinics in this country? The point I wanted to
Because you're an
get at
African country. It only happens. Ask any Muslim. It only happens in Africa. Muslims don't do it.
Must be those African high-skilled migrants that are coming over here. They're all the doctors that are doing it.
Well, Rose, you're mentioning an interesting point there, which is what I wanted to touch on. So now we know that the grooming gangs, or that is an illegal act. And we have a legal system that seems to have been protected. We've already discussed fathers going around the house. We've already discussed police going inside the house. We've already discussed the politicians that were familiar with what was going on there. We also know about the local councils that knew what was going on there. Nobody wanted to get involved. We've got a situation here with female genital mutilation. For starters, if genital mutilation is taking place, questions need to be asked. Who is carrying out the genital mutilation? What medical experience do they have as far as, say,
This is disturbing just to think about.
anatomy, biology is concerned? What kind of care are they receiving afterwards? Also, if the hospital or the clinics are aware, and they must be aware because they've got over 20 of them set up in this country, they must be familiar with the addresses of the girls that are going to the clinics in order to get the treatment. Okay, why is it then that the nurses or the medical clinics are not taking down the details of the girls that have been mutilated, the houses where the mutilation must have been taking place, and the men or the women that are colluding with getting this mutilation done? Do we not see a pattern here of other crimes being committed, but the legal system in this country doesn't seem to be too interested in doing anything for the girls that are victims of genital mutilation? Are we not seeing a pattern here?
But let's also not forget as well that the LGBTQ community are complicit in this as well, because they're involved in the education system. Our education system tries to get children now, they try to persuade them to have this done themselves. So if they target one community for it, they'll have to target both. So
but I will challenge you on that, Rowan, in as much that when it comes to female genital mutilation in this context, it is done against the person's will. Whereas with the genital mutilation that you're talking about, where it's double mastectomies or castrations or chest binding, that is done with that child's consent. Now, I agree with that.
Allegedly.
Yeah, so allegedly. So there are two different. I thought about what you were saying there, Rowan, and instantly I just thought to myself, well, one's done it without consent, or one's done with a pseudo consent, or a consent via proxy, if you like.
But it's why they will never touch on it. That's why, because if they did it with the Muslim community on the FGM, the Muslim community will say, well, hang on a minute, children are allowed to choose whatever genitals they want, and whether they want to have them off. This is our religious practice. So. Yeah, that's why I don't believe this has ever been challenged, and it should be. All of it should be. Anything to do with children and surgery in regards of their genitals should, unless it's for a medical emergency, it should be banned. It should not be allowed.
Absolutely. This is something I wanted to we touched on earlier on. This is just a confirmation that there are over 300,000 children missing in America over the border. And this was a report, as you can see, in October 2nd, 2024. Okay. There's a serious problem in America with children going missing. Where are they? There's a couple of the pages I want to bring up, if I may. This next one. You guys may already know about the next one. I hope you do, because when I heard this, I was absolutely incensed. Unbelievable. And this is of a MP Rochdale. Okay, no, it's not. It's West Yorkshire. Sorry, I'm thinking of somebody else. This is Rochdale, West Yorkshire MP, Naz Shah, who retweeted a comment about the victims should shut their mouths for the good of diversity.
You couldn't write it, could you?
Can you believe
that? Horrendous. Yeah. Can I just do a?
And it's that rhetoric that has seen us getting the large scale of the problem of what we have, because nobody was willing or is willing to touch on it in fear of being persecuted for being not politically erect, or they're always pandering to someone because of some kind of issue. They're too afraid to speak.
We can't. I mean, we can't. We just have to stop. Can I just go off topic for a moment? Just want to address those people, because those lies are costing lives, right? Those lies are literally costing lives. When I was dealing with this whole FBI thing with my friend, and he lost his channel and whatnot, because we were discussing the Talmud and going through all of it in quite depth over several months, there was a shooting by a certain group that attacked us online, that swarmed us online, and they eventually inspired someone to go and shoot up a synagogue, and I think 5 people were killed, right, at the synagogue. Now, this Owen Benjamin, the world's stupidest comedian, right, he says here, and I quote, "If you think that they have to tell the truth, you have to understand that in the Talmud, they say," let me quote it, "Jews may use lies to circumvent a Gentile." That's in Baba Kama 113a, Owen Benjamin. He quotes that literally. You can go to the link here, look that up, and watch that for yourself, right? Now, it states here, now this is with a misquote. This is why Christians become Islamic dawagandists, propagandists for Islam, right? This is how this happens, because they're too lazy and too stupid and easily gullible and misled to actually go and read for themselves. Let me just read what the Talmud actually says. Rabbi Hanina Bar Kahana said that Shmuel says the Mishnah is discussing a customs collector, a tax collector, who does not have a limitation placed by the governor on the amount he may collect, and he collects as he pleases. Alternatively, the sages of the school of Rabbi Yanai said the Mishnah is discussing a customs collector who stands on his own. He was not appointed by the government, but on his own, and he forces people to give him money. So let me see, it's talking about a tax collector who is stealing from people. The Gemara notes. Now, this is a debate, this is a discussion happening over centuries by hundreds of rabbis, and there are those who teach one may vow before murderers, plunderers, and customs collectors in order to reinforce the claim that a certain item that is being commandeered is teruma or teruma. So, in other words, if they come to your house and you've got to pay taxes and you can't pay taxes, you've got to give them something of value. And you can say, no, that belongs to, that's a family heirloom, or that's something that's exempt, or that the king gave me as a gift, or something. So it's exempt, right? So you can try to lie to get out of a debt. Can it be that it is permitted to pronounce such a vow before customs collectors? But doesn't Shmuel say the law of the kingdom is the law? It should be prohibited to state such a vow. In other words, it should be prohibited to give such a lie, even to someone who is stealing from you. And then it goes on. It's ruling with regards to a customs collector who does not have a limitation, right? The Mishnah issues its ruling, right, with regards to a customs collector who is doing this on his own. Now, to just circumvent this and just get to the end, it says here, the Mishnah issues the ruling with regard to a Gentile customs collector whom one may deceive. Right? So they take that, oh, you may deceive. In the case of a Jew and a Gentile who approach the court for judgment in a legal dispute. If you can vindicate the Jew under Jewish law, vindicate him and say to the Gentile, this is our law. If you can be vindicated under Gentile law, vindicate him and say to the Gentile, this is your law. And if it is not possible to vindicate him under either system of law, approach the case circuitously, trying to vindicate the Jew. So they take this idea and they try to say, hey, Jews can lie to you. The context is very specific, but here's how it ends. Rabbi Akiva, and this is the main dude, this is like the big guy, he disagrees and he says, one does not approach the case circuitously in order to vindicate the Jew due to the sanctification of God's name. God's name will be desecrated if the judge employs dishonest means. So whoever that girl was 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, do you see you were lied to?
Cora.
Everyone gave you a paraphrase of what is stated here and failed to give you the full context. You were too lazy to look it up for yourself. It states at the end, you cannot lie as a Jew because you will desecrate the name of God. So I think that's pretty definitive. Any thoughts from you guys on this before we move on?
I think you know, it's very much when people bring up that if you killed an innocent, you killed all mankind. If you saved an innocent, you've saved all mankind. It's that, you know, they've taken a small part that suits the narrative that they're trying to reveal without giving the whole in order to misrepresent.
And not only that, what they do, you'll find a lot of Muslim reporters or people that will be debating these kind of subjects. They'll use this to deflect away from the very points that we are trying to argue with them. They'll say, well, actually, in Christianity, it says this, or we find that with the age of Rebecca. When we talk about Aisha with Muhammad, they'll say, oh, but what about Rebecca and Isaac? They won't actually turn around and say, oh, yeah, actually, it's bad. They'll deflect from the situation, try and change subject, and put you on the spot. And you'll find this in all arguments, whether it's lying, children, sexual intercourse with children, grape, anything. And you'll find most people who pander to them will do the same as well. Don't let them do it. That's all I'm saying.
So you know, I know. Say goodbye to the camera. Enjoy the band, because you don't know what you're talking about. You honestly do not know what you're talking about. Yeah, there's some weird things in the Talmud. There's some things that leave you scratching your head and wondering what the heck are these guys on about. But again, you are guilty of exactly the same as others I just pointed out. I've just pointed out a lie. There are multiple lies like this. I spent months reading it. My friend and I spent a lot of time actually writing, going through a lot of these, showing how Christians, and I use that term very loosely now, I should call them Muslim impersonating Christians, or Christian impersonators pretending to be Christians, but just liars, really, technically is what they are, just average liars. And they don't know what they're talking about, just like you. So get lost, go away, and maybe one day you'll actually bother to read the book and notice that someone's been lying to you and you enjoyed the lies way too much. So yeah, moving on, guys. Yes, that's that from me there. Please, back to you guys.
Lloyd, if that's okay. At 8 p.m. Is that okay?
8 p.m. Yeah, that's good. So you need to call it. Yeah, that's fine. That's okay. I've got family over anyway, and tomorrow morning I am packing because the room behind me is full of boxes and things and junk on the floor, and because I'm moving house soon, so so tomorrow we are taking a.
I've got to take all this down soon as well. I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to get there.
Yeah. So guys, last word then. If you need to bail, Patriotic Christian. But I mean, this is interesting. But yeah, look, I'm not here to defend the Talmud because there are some odd things. But all the evil that people say is there, man, I haven't found it, and I've read that book. So.
Okay.
Yeah. So over to you. Last words. Yeah.
Yeah. So going back to the original thing that we were saying, I just want to say my plea to everyone, especially if you're in Britain right now. And you watch this, is please do not let this ever get hidden or brushed under the carpet again, because the establishment, and this includes the media, by the way, the government and the media will do whatever they can now to make this disappear. They want people to stop talking about this. So we need to keep going at it. I know that, I've seen some reports of protests that are going to take place, peaceful protests that are going to take place. But my urge as well is, if there is an independent inquiry and then loads of things come out, is if you feel the need to go and lose your temper, please do not. We will do things peacefully, and that's how things should be done. And I don't encourage any kind of violent behavior or anything like that. I just wanted to make that clear, because when I was talking about earlier, there could be social unrest because of this. I don't agree with social unrest, so I just want to make that clear.
It may be unavoidable. If you can't talk about this, that may be the only outlet. Because remember, during the summer of love and all that, Black Lives Matter, this is the voice of the unheard. Well, hey.
Well, that's the people who take things in when they're not listened to. Eventually, I mean, some people are forced underground, and if you do that to people and they feel like they have to take it in their own hands to sort a problem out, they will do, inevitably. I don't encourage that. I have to say this, because if I don't, I'll find myself behind iron bars with Tommy Robinson. So that's how it is now here in the UK. But yeah, I just want to say everything that's gone on is disgusting. I'm so thankful we've got the likes of Elon Musk, Tommy Robinson, Sammy Woodhouse as well, who was a victim in all this and has been doing so much work on this for a significant amount of years. To the point, the police, because they know she's quite a big pawn in this, what's going on.
They actually tried to silence her with pressure. Yeah.
They rang her and told her to remove all the content involving this scandal off of her profile, which is absolutely disgusting. They're still now not just ignoring the cries and the pleas from the victims and their families. They are also trying to silence those who are speaking up against it. There's so much going on.
Can I just add on to that with what you're saying there, Ron, as well, is that when you start adding it up, if you go back to what I was saying earlier on about drugs being used, illegal, alcohol being given to 13-year-olds, illegal, people kept against their will, illegal. Police officers and counsellors know this. So if you start launching an investigation, you have to have, there'll be incidents recorded as to what officer went round at what time or what did they do, a name. That person's going to say, well, I was following orders from my sergeant. Then the sergeant's name has to be mentioned. Then that sergeant will say, well, I had to follow orders from the Metropolitan Commander. Do you see where the chain starts going up then? So for me, with what you're saying there, I think the reason why they're trying to quash all of this is because this is, in my estimation, when you look what's gone on in America as well, with the 300,000 children there is something, and the history of child abuse in this country, with people being arrested and getting just suspended sentence for downloaded child porn. That's telling you they've downloaded child porn. That does not tell you whether they've actually committed an act with the child or not. Logic would dictate if you're downloading the pornography of that practice, the likelihood is that you're either wanting to or going to. I think, was it the Tavistock Institute where one of its doctors got caught grooming a 15-year-old boy just towards the end of last year as well, and was caught as well. So I think, in my estimation, that the Pakistani grooming gangs are a component of an organized structure that is significantly bigger and more powerful. They are just the front men and the procurers, in my estimation, because there seems to be, if there were just gangs, not only that, it's the fact that there's over 50 of them in the country as well, that we know of. So this is, and when you look at, say, politicians that have been involved in this kind of behavior as well. Where does it all end? Where does it lead up to? Who else is involved? So for me, that there is a bigger element in all of this that could well be what's inhibited progress.
We know where it started as well. It was when Gordon Brown actually addressed every police force in the UK and said that these girls involved in this in the grape assaults had made informed decisions themselves and were also more sexually experienced than the attackers involved, the animals involved, and they should be left alone, basically. And that's why some parents...
the police were not to regard these as crimes, and they were to not bother to investigate and simply let these crimes go. Exactly. So Gordon Brown actually sent a memo. That was 2010, I believe, or 2008, 2010. And he said, do not investigate these. And the police simply said, okay, fine.
Yep.
And so therefore, anyone who reported these was ignored. 11-year-old girls ignored.
Just can I bring up one more last point, if I may? I've got so many things I wanted to discuss, but I know we're pressed for time. I want to bring up one more news article because I want people to understand the gravitas of what these girls endured. Okay,
I'm gonna have to go now because I'm running a bit late. But thank you for having me on, Lloyd. Also touch on Thunderous One about the emergency contraceptive pill with that social worker. Because
well, look, maybe we can repeat this in a couple of weeks once I'm set up in my new place. Internet's installed, so internet's only going in on Thursday, but we're moving Wednesday, so etc. etc. Power plugs are only being done next week, etc. etc. So
well, good luck with the move, Lloyd. I hope it goes well for you. But yeah, I'm gonna make a move. If anyone would like to subscribe, you can subscribe to my channel. I am going to be putting some new content up soon, so watch out. But yeah, thanks for having me on, Lloyd, and we'll definitely talk again on this. That will be great.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thanks.
Nice.
Thanks. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah. The one thing I wanted to raise on this, one last point, is for me, when I read this, I was absolutely appalled. I'm just sharing it now, so hopefully it'll come up.
Yeah.
Right. So this is right. So this is taken from an article that was from Ripped, and this is a known situation that took place. I just wanted to show what actually happened to one girl. This is the judge talking to one of the accused. Muhammad Karar, prepared her for gang anal rape by using the pump to expand her anal passage. You subjected her to a gang rape of 5 or 6 men, count 30. At one point, she had 4 men inside her, red balls placed in the mouth to keep her quiet. Not only were you involved in the commercial sexual exploitation of GH, you also used her for your own self-gratification. You both raped her when she was under 13. She was very young, although it's not clear whether she was under 13. You both raped her at the same time, oral and vaginal and anal. It happened on more than one occasion.
Disgusting.
This is animalistic. They actually used the device in order to sexually abuse her in a particularly deviant manner.
I mean, this is organized. This is planned. This is
one word to use it. This is demonic. It's demonic. There's no other way around it. When you look at things traditionally, going back to the Bible, and I'm sure you and I have discussed this before, when you go back to, say, the days of the kings of the nation of Israel, the Canaanites, the Philistines, they were using child sacrifices as part of their worship to their gods. You have to ask the question, for those who accept the biblical narrative as a reality, at what point can we not say that these are some form of a modern day child sacrifice to certain gods? How could you do this? It is beyond the realms of human being comprehension to consider to do that to a person. But it's not beyond the realms of a demonic mind to do that, because we know from history that that's what they've been doing. And one last point, all right, about the Pakistani Muslim community in this country and in any country. Can you bring up a scripture for me, Lloyd?
Which one?
Revelation 18, verse 4.
Give me one second.
It's a principle I want to touch on. And it's with reference to that MP that made that statement in the Houses of Parliament, when he turned around and said that if you're a mother, a daughter, or a sister, or a member of the community, you know about this, you're guilty. It's interesting he should say that, because Revelation 18 verse 4 says something very interesting. So, can you enlarge that, dude?
A second. There we go.
Right there. So now, I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and ye not receive her plagues." The point being that we can all argue that this is taken from Revelation 17 and Revelation chapter 18, where it's talking about Babylon the Great. And many people have their own ideas as to what Babylon the Great is. If you go to Revelation 17:16, it says God puts it in their heart to destroy Babylon the Great. I'm not here to discuss that. I'm here to look at a principle in the eyes of God. He says there, "Come out of her, my people, if you do not want to be partakers of her sins," meaning whatever Babylon the Great may be in your eyes or somebody else's eyes, if whatever it is, from God's point of view, he's bringing destruction on Babylon the Great. But if you're a part of it, you're going down with it. And it's the same principle that the MP brought up in the court of law. If you people knew that this was going on in your community, you're just as bad as the person that's committed the crime. It's what's known as tacit support or silent support. That's the point. And even God takes silent support of these things seriously. You are held to account. So if you, and that also goes to the MPs, it goes to the police, it goes to the probably the medical departments that have had to deal with these traumatized girls for medical reasons or psychological or emotional reasons. This problem is bigger than what people imagine.
Yeah. So guys, this is unspeakable. It's beyond words. And within the Sharia, stop talking about the Quran. Stop wasting your time on that little kiddie's manual of Islam. The details are in the Sharia. We need to discuss that. It explains everything very clearly. We need to talk about all of these issues. We can't be silent. If we can't speak about it, they will just... Islam, the Crusades, the Muslims didn't stop. They were stopped. Same token, this is just another form, just another way of infiltrating and taking over Western culture, defeating and dominating Western culture. You have to stop them, use your voice, speak about it. Go on social media, bring attention to this, talk about it. They cannot silence you all. So speak about it. That's all we can do. That's all we can do, because if you're not allowed to speak about it, the only other option is violence. Unfortunately, that's how history has always been. We don't want that, but at some point, it may be unavoidable. It may come to the point because these people are prepared to do violence. These people are escalating, and Islam, violence is inherent in it. So rather, let us take a strong stand now to prevent a major catastrophe later. Those are my words. Yeah.
Thank you, Lloyd.
Yeah, so that's it. So guys, thank you all very much for the time. This makes me very angry. And when people make false claims about the Talmud, look, they are legitimate criticisms you can levy at Jews. They are legitimate criticisms you can levy at the Talmud. I never see those. I see lies. I just wish people wouldn't lie about it. I don't lie about Islam. I don't lie about the Sharia. I show the Sharia. I read it. Muslims still tell me I lie, but I've read it from the page. I didn't make it up. When I see Christians simply paraphrasing a paraphrase of a paraphrase that they got from some Muslim propagandist, I think that needs to be called out. So if you feel confident, then perhaps we can arrange a little discussion. You bring the evidence and we go through it, and you show me as an expert in the Talmud. I mean, you being the expert, you prove to us all how, and then we'll compare the Talmud with the Sharia and see if the Talmud one for one matches all of these laws and all of these situations, or if it's just a handful of isolated quotes that you manage to find and misrepresent. That should be a question we should be able to answer. So guys, that's it for me. Any final word before we call it a night here?
No, I'd just like to say thank you to everybody that's been involved in the show tonight. I want to thank you, Rowan, for being a member of the panel tonight. I want to thank people that have been listening to the show. Thank you for your comments in the chat. Anybody that's listening to the show after this evening, it would be very encouraging if you could put some comments in the comment section, your opinions and any contribution that you like to make about how you feel about this situation as well. And then when we discuss this again, we can bring those points up for
And
the
what
next
we
show.
can do about this.
Yeah, and I'd also like to thank you, Lloyd, for your continued efforts on your channel, all the myriad of information that you bring out, your research. And thank you for arranging this for us to have our Thunder Room discussion.
Cool. No, thank you. So everyone, good night. God bless. Have a great weekend. See you all soon. Goodbye.